So today's video is going to be on handling gerbils. So with any small pet, you have to always be aware of how fragile they can be, and you have to be really careful and consider when you handle them and how you handle them. And I expect that's especially with the smaller pets such as gerbils, hamsters, mice and so on. So gerbils are smaller than an adult Syrian hamster, but are also slightly bigger than your average pet mouse. So they're kind of in between the two. And although they are very boisterous, playful pets, you will often see them throwing themselves around, really playing. They can still be really fragile. You've got to be careful when you do handle them and how you handle them. So the first thing that I consider doing is when you're going to handle your gerbil, you should put your hand in the cage for at least a couple of seconds just so they can have a sniff of your hand and recognise your scent so that they won't be startled and frightened when you do pick them up. This way they'll recognise you and recognise what you're going to do before you pick them up. So the thing I would say never to do, unless your gerbils are really comfortable with it, and maybe once you've had your gerbils for a long time and they really do know you and they're very tame, is I wouldn't pick them up or grab them from the back. That's kind of picking them up from the top, like pulling them up, as you can see in the clip now. What I would do and prefer to do, even now with my gerbils, I can pick them up and grab them if I want to, because they don't mind and they're really tame, but I would always prefer to pick them up in the way that you're going to see now. So as you can see in this clip, I'm doing a kind of scoop with the gerbils. So all I'm doing is putting one hand on one side of the gerbil, another hand on another, and just scooping them into the middle so that the gerbil is completely comfortable when I pick him up and that he isn't being frightened or being picked up really quickly by someone he doesn't know and can't see. So he's just being scooped up, and once my hands go under his paws, they just kind of lightly lift onto my hands so that it's really comfortable for the gerbil and really not going to frighten him at all. So with handling gerbils, I'd always recommend that you do handle your gerbils like that, especially with any new gerbils or new gerbil owners, because this way they can get comfortable with you, they'll get used to you. Like I said, I can grab my gerbils if I want to, obviously not as violently as I'm making out, but I can pick them up from lifting them from the top because they are comfortable with me and they do know me and they don't mind now because they're really tame. But I would still always prefer to scoop them up rather than pick them up, because in my opinion it's a lot kinder, the gerbils are more comfortable with it, it doesn't frighten them, they will know your scent as your hands are scooping them up, and best of all, they'll like you better for it because it won't do any harm to them. The other thing you have to remember when handling gerbils is never ever pick them up from the tail. A defence system that the gerbils have in the wild is if they're threatened and are picked up by a wild bird or any other kind of wild creature, if they're picked up by the tail, which instinctively most wild birds and things do tend to do when they're picking up gerbils or mice, things like that, the gerbil's tail will actually fall off as a defence system. So if you go and pick your gerbils up by the tail and it frightens them, their tails will drop off, and unfortunately that can never be then reversed. You can never fix that. Their tail will never grow back, and it's really not that healthy for the gerbils. Obviously it's a defence system, but it should never happen, and you should never risk that happening. There have been occasions when gerbils have caught their tails in wire things and their tails have pulled off then. So this is reasons why you should never ever give a gerbil a wire wheel, and also never give them put them in a hamster ball, because they're not hamsters, they don't belong in hamster balls, and their tails could get caught in the hamster ball. So going back onto the subject for handling gerbils, like I said, you must never ever pick them up by the tail, and the end of the tail, which should look a bit like a paintbrush, it's kind of like just a thin piece of hair, that's a really delicate part of their body, and you don't want to be kind of handling that and playing with that because they really won't like it unless they're extremely comfortable with you. But it's really recommended that you just leave it alone and don't play with their tail at all. So, like I said a few minutes ago, the best possible way to handle a gerbil is to just scoop them up and then just sit them on your knee or keep them in your hands, and they'll be completely comfortable with that. They won't mind at all, it won't frighten them, and they'll be really happy with that way of picking them up. So that's pretty much all you have to know to handling gerbils. It's pretty simple. They're a really nice, easy pet, and they're really outgoing and won't mind you picking them up as long as you don't frighten them, like I keep mentioning. And I know I do keep repeating that, but it's a really important thing. You don't want to startle them because it won't be nice for them, and then they might not be comfortable in your presence, which is something you really don't want as a gerbil owner. So that's it then, and I hope this has been helpful to some of you guys that do own gerbils or want to own gerbils, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. So thanks for watching, I'll see you all soon. Bye everyone.